To start us off, can you share with us how many years you've been posting 3 times a week on YouTube for?
Been posting, I did 3 times a week for a while, maybe a year. And most of the time it's been twice a week for a total of 5 years now.
Okay. And can you give us a little bit more behind the scenes of how much work goes into an output like that? Because I obviously am keenly aware of that as a creator, but I don't think people have the slightest clue of how much work that entails.
Yeah, you really can't until you do it yourself, because I probably had the same delusions before that, I'm watching some YouTube video somebody made and it's a 15-minute video. It probably took them 30 minutes to make this video, I would imagine. It's like, no, every 15-minute video is 15 hours of work. So if I'm doing 2 videos a week, that's minimum 30 hours of work a week to get 2 videos out. And that was when I didn't have any team. I'm editing all my stuff. And I did that for basically 4 out of 5 years, edited all my content. And so for me, like work ethic, you talked about doing versus being. This right now is one of my favorite spiritual catalysts to allow all my doing to come from being. Meaning like I don't work and hustle and grind because I need to achieve something to love myself and have a purpose. I do what I do because it flows out of what I am. Like I can't help but teach and serve. And I want to be of service to humanity so bad that it comes out as this really high level work ethic. Because if you don't keep your why in the forefront, it's really easy to get burnt out. Because you think, I'm just doing this because I need a new YouTube video this week. What am I going to post this week? And you can easily fall into that rut or whatever your job is. But after so much of doing that, you will come up against burnout over and over again. And you'll need to find a different attitude to approach your work from. And this is a big part of, I think, spiritual evolution, is letting your doing come from being. And I know we talked about this, Jeremy, in our rabbit hole series, that in the Law of One, Ra makes a really big point of pointing out the 9-to-5 work week as enslavement. And that from their perspective, as a 6th density extraterrestrial, what we call work, they call enslavement. It's like, just let that sink in for a second.
Yeah, I was going to say mic drop.
I thought it was just my 9-to-5. Well, from the human perspective it is, but because the human is, relatively speaking, so spiritually unevolved, we don't understand that this is not the natural way of things in the universe. And I mean, we can even look back to our ancestors and realize that like even our hunter-gatherer days, when we had to live off the land, only worked a couple hours a day. And the rest of the time we spent resting. And Ra says that's actually what is needed for spiritual evolution, meaning as long as you're married to a 9-to-5 or worse work week, you won't have the time it takes to truly ascend spiritually and graduate from this realm, because it demands a lot of you, right? And if your every waking moment is spent worrying about how am I going to pay the bills and I got to go to this dead-end freaking job I hate, you are a slave to something that you don't want to be involved in. But because you're disempowered enough to think, well, I can't make it without this enslavement job, then you're stuck in that job. So that's why I've really appreciated the work that you do in teaching people financial literacy and intelligence to understand what money is, how it actually flows, the right mindsets to attract money from an empowerment standpoint. These are all like basic prerequisites to wealth. And so as I have come into this journey of being a spiritual teacher without having any clue this is where I was going to be 10 years ago, the value that you give out is the value that the universe gives back to you. And you and I both know this. If you truly want to manifest an abundant life, whatever that looks like, you got to figure out, how can I give value to the universe? What can I do? What can I give that provides value to others? And then you won't even have to worry about getting the value back. It'll come to you naturally. That's been my journey with wealth and finances. My parents were very poor, being pastors, of course. We were what you would probably consider like low middle class. Definitely not in the lowest economic denominator, but just one step above it. My parents fought to pay the bills every day of their life, my whole childhood. But they kept that from us for the most part. So I didn't necessarily feel poor growing up, but looking back, I'm like, wow, we really struggled through those years, you know? So I've never been used to like having this luxurious, wealthy life. But as I've gotten into my adult years, up until, 29, 30, when I really started kind of being full-time on YouTube, I was living paycheck to paycheck, just trying to rub 2 pennies together to pay my rent. And I thought that was normal. That's just the way life is in this world. And really, it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I started to question that narrative of, is being extremely poor and barely being able to pay your rent, is that the way things are supposed to be? And it started to feel more and more insane and strange and bizarre. And why does anybody accept this way of life when we live in an infinite, abundant universe where there is no lack of wealth or resources for anybody? And I think when you realize that there's no lack of anything, there's no lack of wealth at all, anywhere. In fact, there's so much of it, it'd make your head spin.
Too much.
There's too much abundance, you guys. When you really know that, Jeremy, it almost demands you to manifest wealth as a testament to that fact that we said this in our podcast a year ago. I do not want to be abundant so that I can be happy because I'm so poor and I just want some money. No. I want to manifest abundance because abundance is who God is, period. It is a fact, is a metaphysical fact of God's being that God is infinitely abundant. And so if I am the I am of God, the I am of God is the I am of me, why should I ever settle for any level of poverty, whether it's poverty in friendships, poverty in romance, poverty in finances, poverty in opportunity, poverty of purpose? It doesn't matter what it is. I should never settle for lack in any area of my life once I know that abundance is who God is. And so if somebody asks me, Aaron, do you want to be wealthy? After having worked on this for so many years, I can say confidently now, I don't want to be wealthy. I am wealthy. I am wealth itself. I am the abundance of God in a human form. So it's not that I need or want wealth. That's a prodigal consciousness way of seeing it, right? There's no lack of it, guys. Do you know who you are is the only question. Because if you don't, you'll feel poor and I got to keep this job and that'll be your struggle, right? Wealth is all about knowing who you are. And so to look at someone else, first of all, who has wealth and say, no, they're just so rich and so greedy. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a spiritual teacher or Klaus Schwab. To look at someone else and judge them for having wealth is to attack yourself, right? And to declare, I am poor and destitute. That is what I am. Because if you knew you were wealthy, why would you attack someone else who was wealthy, right? This is why humans are very tribalistic. We love people who are like us. We tend to conglomerate in groups of whether it's race, ethnicity, religion, ideology. We like people who are like us. So, hey, if you don't like people who are wealthy for any reason, you must think that you're a prodigal, right? You must think that you're poor and lacking. So can we use our judgments, number one, about wealth to look inside of ourselves as a reflection? Because again, being extremely wealthy is no more or less spiritually valid than being poor and living in an ashram and having nothing but a jug of water to your name. Like, you can have either one of those experiences. And in a sense, Jeremy, those are both equally abundant experiences, if that's what you desire, right? Some people, it is their highest excitement to renounce the physical world and live like a monk in an ashram. And so they're abundant in emptiness, right? They don't feel poor just because they only have a jug of water. Wealth is a mindset, as you always say. Abundance is a mindset. It's not a material thing in any way, but the material abundance will be a reflection of your mindset, right?
I'm fired up. Yeah. One of our clips that performed the best from that podcast a year ago, where we were like kind of discovering, it was like it was such an authentic conversation because we were having these realizations in real time. Yeah. Like, it was like we hadn't talked about this before, and then to see where you are today is just fucking cool. But I remember it was like, to know, you said that, what you said, and then I was like, yes, to know God is to know wealth. I want to be wealthy because I want to know God. And that was like, seemed to really resonate with people, because that got a lot of shares and comments. And man, there's so much I want to say, but I want to come back to this thing that you said before you started talking about the money, and you were talking about being through doing. Is that how you said it? Being through doing. I love that. I haven't heard that before. So this is something that I really struggled with for many years, because the more it seemed, and it ties into the tribalism so well. So this is great. It seemed that the more I became spiritual, which is really just my ego and my identity,
Right.
but we'll call it that. The more I became spiritual, the more I became a victim to the tribalistic rules of my peers.
Yep.
And the tribalistic rules of my peers were that money was bad and that doing was bad. And this was a number of years ago. And I don't know if if it was a climate and trend thing in the space, or if this was just where I was at. I'm not sure. But at least it was for sure where I was at. It became this thing where I had to suppress and denounce my masculinity, and this burning desire to do, because I was in my purpose. I suppressed it, and I felt shame that I wanted to work how much I wanted to work, because it did not feel in any way like the slavery that you described of a 9 to 5. It felt like I wake up when I want, I get to work out, I fuel my body with healthy food, have a nice juice, and now I just want to fucking serve. And I'm filled up by that for sometimes for 8+ hours, other times 2 hours, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
It just depends. But I literally didn't allow myself to channel my like essence, and we're both very masculine. I didn't allow myself to channel that essence. Honestly, I don't think I really gave myself permission to until 2020. And 3 short years later, here we are. And it's like, I just think back on that, and it was like, you know, for those of you in the audience, like, how many of you are currently crippling yourself? You're denying who and what you actually are and what you're here to do because of these notions, and they're very false notions. I don't know if they're psyops or it's just our this thing we have with virtue signaling and morality sometimes, or if it's tribalism and the environment and the friends we have around us. But I know the people on my timeline at the time, it was all about the feminine at that time. And because I came from such a masculine background, it made a lot of sense of like, yeah, I do need to balance out. And so anything that was masculine was like, oh no, I can't be doing that. I shouldn't be entertaining those aspects. I need to just be. So like Aaron, I would take, this is such a hilarious thing of how I would go about it, but 3 days per week, it had to be on my Google Calendar, right? Such a masculine way to go about it. But 3 days per week, I had to schedule being days on my Google Calendar in a very masculine way to try to force myself to be feminine.
Dude, that's so great.
So it was like on Wednesdays, I sit and do nothing.
It's being day.
And I need to go out in nature and take psychedelics or just be with myself or journal or whatever. And I would just like try to force being. And honestly, you did a really good job of highlighting like the difference. It's not about how much you work or how hard you work. It's about like, what are you working towards? And your work, Aaron, is being through doing. So you could work 24 hours a day, and it wouldn't be the same effect, energetic, or impact you the same way as someone working 8 hours a day in a job. But what came up for me, which is like, that is an excellent point, I've never thought about that, is you mentioned that, I don't know if it was the Law of One or A Course in Miracles, but it talked about how when you're going through your like awakening and you're really prioritizing spiritual development, like working a 9 to 5 doesn't leave you the time you need to awaken. And that's damn true. You need to basically like cancel your life
Yeah.
and go deep for a while. Well, we've obviously both been through those seasons of giving us that space. What I want to ask you is, in my journey, eventually you reach a point where you're like, damn it, I'm tired of sitting around and giving myself space. Like, you do enough work to where you're like, I'm ready to run through a wall.
Ready
Like
for some doing.
Like you're ready for, you've realized self. And then you come, it's like this full circle moment where you come back to, oh, I was demonizing the thing. It wasn't the thing. It was my relationship to the thing. Before, work was this thing I was doing because I wasn't enough. And it was tied to money. And if I just made enough money, then I could be enough. Or because society said, you know, if you're a productive human, you work Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Like before, maybe that was my relationship to it. But then you go through all of this healing, you let go of all these aspects of things that you're not, and you come full circle to why you're here, who and what you actually are, and as you always teach on, the service to others path. And then it like unlocks this thing where you can just fucking work.
Yeah.
And it is not the same. So I'm curious, like, has that been your experience, and how do you articulate that? Because like, and I think this would be a helpful time to kind of share, like, with people, like speaking on specifically, like, how much are you working right now in this season of your life, and how is it feeling for you? I think that's would be very eye-opening, right? Most people have jobs and they don't understand like what this can feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this conversation. I'll begin by saying right now, I probably work between 8 to 10 hours a day average. And that's just being in front of the computer or sometimes on my phone, whether it's working on copy or something like that. But it's like a constant all day thing from the time I wake up basically until 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And that's Selena as well. Like we're both just grinding. But that's because, again, where are we working from? We're not working from a lack scarcity mentality. Well, I have to do this shitty job because I can't be successful in anything else. That's a very draining way to work. We're working from a deep place of fulfillment of this is my highest passion to do this. I'm serving humanity. I'm living out my purpose. And so the working fills us up to a large extent. And that's not to say we don't eventually sometimes get burnt out and say, let's go have some sushi or whatever. Let's go watch a movie to just decompress. We do that all the time, but we're never living from a distraught place like most people in the world are in relationship to their job. And that's because they're doing something they don't really want to do every day. And whether we talk about, you know, there's spousal abuse, there's child abuse, there's different kinds of abuse. Well, this is what we call soul abuse. It is abusive to your soul to do something you don't want to do over and over again. Because your soul is all about purpose and who I am and authenticity and actualizing my purpose here. You have to find your purpose in this life and work towards it at all costs. Yes, even the cost of being homeless on the street, right? That's the ego's worst fear. Well, if I pursue my purpose and my passion, I could lose everything and end up on the street. And it's like, how many stories have you heard where people did that and that's when they actually started to find their purpose and now they're a multimillionaire or something? Like that happens all the time. And sometimes it's part of the hero's journey, right? Now, it is extremely rare that happens, but look, even the ego's worst fear of if I follow my passion, blank will happen, even that will inevitably lead to your success. So what's your excuse now? You just posted a reel on this, right? Or a podcast on this. Failure doesn't exist in the universe. That's a lack belief. There isn't such a thing as failure, meaning, I hope you guys are listening, you cannot fail by following your purpose. It's an illusion. It's an abstraction. It's not a real fact of the matter. So the thing is, we want acceptance so bad that we're willing to deny our purpose to get acceptance. But ironically, the kind of acceptance we really want, which is to be seen, right, for what we are and our unique purpose and our unique gifts, to really be accepted like that requires you to step into your purpose, right? The acceptance you want is a result of stepping into your authenticity. And so can you be fully authentic by running from your passion and your purpose? Because I'm scared, or what if people don't accept me in what I'm passionate about? Can you really be authentic running from your purpose? Of course you can't, right? Your purpose is your authenticity. That's where you'll find it. And so it's, again, where are you working from is the question. It's all my doing should come from who I'm being. And this is a principle I share in 4You all the time of being who you are, which is authenticity, is sharing who you are. They're synonymous. And the analogy I give for that is, let's say, a superhero. If a superhero never went out to fight crime, how could they possibly know that they have superpowers? They would literally not ever know that they were a superhero if they never needed to use their superpowers. Likewise, a star in the sky or the sun. How could the sun be what it is if it never shined its light? If it didn't radiate its light in all directions, we would not know it as the sun, and the sun wouldn't know itself as the sun. So there's this simultaneously being is sharing. To be who you are is to give who you are. And that giving is stepping into your purpose, being true to yourself, following your passion. When you do that, you become radiant and attractive, and people love to see others who are being authentic and following their purpose. So again, there's another illusion, right? Just like failure, is that I won't be accepted if I follow my real passion. Another lie, right? You will only truly be accepted once you're following your purpose, right? Until you're doing that, people are only accepting a fake version of you, right? That you're making up for them to get some approval from people. So you can't avoid or get around this concept of authenticity. Everything you're looking for in life comes from being true to who you are. And that's really what you were speaking to, right? Of like, well, I really want to go rise and grind for my passion, but all my spiritual friends say that it's unenlightened for me to grind. So I'll just meditate, I guess. And it's like, now we're divorced from ourself again. Masculine, feminine, right? They're not meant to be separate. They're meant to become one. We call that mind-heart coherence, right? When you can fully accept who you are from the heart, and you can also know who you are, right? I'm meant to do this. I'm passionate about that. This is my purpose. This is what drives me. That's self-knowledge. And then can you marry those two things? Can you absolutely love the fact that you are the way you are? Can you absolutely love what lights you up and the dreams you have for your future? Because guess what? That's all divine, right? That's all the universe's desires manifesting through you. So in another sense, it's kind of like stop being so selfish and hiding your light and shrinking, right? Give your desires back to the universe, right? None of it's yours to begin with. It was given to you by God to be this person you are, to have this passion you have. Why would you keep that to yourself and hide it from the world?
Mic drop right there. Let us know in the comments if you appreciated that rant from Aaron. That was extremely powerful and straight up channeling divinity right there when you speak. I can see it when it happens.
It lights me up, man. It really does.
Yeah, it's beautiful.